Welcome to the class again. So uh, we were talking about the life cycle of data science. In this life cycle of data science, we have 6 phases. The very first phase we are going to call it as uh, the discovery. Second one we are going to call it as data preparation. Third one we are going to call it as model planning. Fourth one we call it as model building. Fifth one we are going to call it as operationalize, and sixth one we are going to call it as a communicative results. So all these are going to say they have a feedback. So there will be a feedback mechanism between first stage and second stage. But whereas in the data warehousing and data mining, the stages don't have feedback. So that was the first key takeaway we should understand here. In the phase one, we will have specifications, requirement, budgeting. Then we will make a formulation of the data, and thereby we are going to build up the hypothesis. That is what we are going to call here as a discovery phase. After discovery phase, we have extraction, transformation, and loading in the data mining concepts. But in this data science, we have a new phase called as ETLT, that is extract, loading, transformation, and transformation. So these will be the change. So transformation is going to occur for 2 times. So this was the takeaway what we are going to understand from data preparation. That is, data will be impure. That impure data has to be rectified before we are going to make this for modeling. Next one we are going to have the word called as model planning. So in this model planning, what we are going to say is we are going to use much of the explorations for the database or the data set. So we will understand the data by putting some statistical formulas and by making some visualizations, etc. And the next thing was, as part of the syllabus, we will be using the R language, and we will use R. And in fact, most of the experiments what we will be taking up in this course, which we will be looking with the R programming itself. Next one was we are going to build the model. So before we are going to build the model, what was the need was we do have a data set, and that data set we are going to make a splitting, one towards training set and another towards testing set, and thereby we are going to use the prominent tools such as SAS, such as Vecca, MATLAB, Statistica. So these are some of the tools which we are going to use, and thereby we will use up some of the machine learning techniques. So what will be some of the machine learning techniques means they can be classified, one with supervised learnings, two with unsupervised learnings, and thereby with some association techniques with market basket analysis and a priori models. So using all these things, we are going to build up the models. So this will be the fifth phase of the data science. Fine. Coming to the fifth phase, what we are going to mention up here, these we are going to call it as an operationalized phasing. So in this phase, most importantly, we will be getting up the budgets, we'll be getting up the code, we'll be getting up the document, and holistically we are going to execute the content and bring up a real-time environment. So this all we are going to move this as part of the phase 6 process. And the next one was communication of results. So whatever life cycle we are going to use for the data science, the main intention was we apply it for some specific domain, and that specific domain, the objective has to be fulfilled. So that means we are going to formulate a problem, and thereby we are going to get the results, and that results we need to communicate to others. So the main intention was we have to make predictions, we have to make forecasting, we have to see the business is going to be improved for the domain. So for that, we are going to use this communicative of a results. So there, what we are going to communicate means we are going to communicate the key findings and just check whether the model has been reached to the stakeholder or not. So that is how we are going to evaluate the things. So, as far as data scientist role is going to be concerned, the most important thing was he is going to make a study and he is going to practice. One, he will be looking up with collections. Two, he will be looking up with storage. And three, he will be processing the data. So how he is going to store, how he is going to collect the data, how he is going to process the data means, yeah, he is going to use up one, we are going to say with human interventions. That is where he conducts surveys, that is where he is going to conduct logs. Then he is going to use up the infrastructure, the CPUs, the GPUs, etc. Thereby, he is going to gather out the data. And once he is going to get the data he is going to normalize it and put them in form of a text data, an audio data, or a video data. So, or an augmented reality data, etc. So, in this way, he is going to generate up the data, which is going to be playing up a most prominent role at this point of time. Next thing was whatever data we are going to figure out for this content will be with a 3V model, will be with a 3V model. So what is this 3V means? One, we are going to call it is accumulated with velocity. So when we are going to talk about velocity, it is going to stream the data. It is going to stream the data. So that means in megabytes, gigabytes, terabytes. So the speed of a data, the internet speed. So that one we are going to look as the first case. Second thing, we are going to get the volume of a data. So we were now coined with a lot of terms. First we call it as a files, then to DBMS, third to data warehouse, and now to cloud, and now to big data. So in this way we have been tremendous data, which it is 1 terabyte of data. So in this way we are going to have volumes of data, which we are going to say size is going to take up the one of the most prominent way. Next one, we are going to say how we are going to get the data. So how we are going to get the data means, so data can be taken up right from a structured format. When we are going to call it as a structured format, there are two approaches. One, we can get it from a database. Two, we can get it from a data warehouse. So all those, they are going to say that data is going to be organized in form of rows and columns. So there we are going to mention it with the structured data. But when coming to the unstructured data, so when there is unstructured data, we can say there is a lot of impurity in it. The data is not processed. So some of the interesting examples will be the social media content, that is the YouTube comments, the Twitter posts, the WhatsApp messages, the Facebook stories, the Instagram stories. So all these are not stored directly in a database. So they are put in the chat boxes, etc. That information has to be analyzed. So to do this, we will first use a word called here as a variety with an unstructured data. So this unstructured data, we will be using some NoSQL software here. So using instead of using SQL, we will be using NoSQL, and thereby we will be processing out this unstructured data. So where exactly we are going to have some of an applications for data science. So some of an applications for data science, they can be fit with one, we are going to call it as finance domain. So in finance domain, people will look whether a person can be given a loan or not. So how we are going to check means we are going to see that whether that person's credit score is maintaining of the account. So we look up at the word called as crediting, the look up at the word called as debiting, and the balance sheets, so etc. So thereby we are going to see whether the person's analyze the person's banking scenario, and thereby whether a loan can be given based upon his credit history, age. uh, so this is how the finance is going to take up as a part of a data science application. So for that, we are going to identify his behavior with machine learning algorithms. So uh, seeing up the previous patterns, and then we can decide whether the loan can be sanctioned to him or not. So in this way, we are going to use a data science as one of an application for this finance sector. The other sector where data science is prominently using will be with the public policy. So public policy, yeah, it is purely used by the governments and government agencies to understand the citizens' behavior or to understand the citizens' rules and to give them good governance. So it can be in form of economics, it can be in form of political science, etc. So the main intention that his quality of life has to be improved so that it can be at any of his stages, including traffic, including public transportation, his welfare schemes, his community well-beings, etc. All that will be analyzed, and thereby whether they can be improved or not. So that lifestyle environment is going to be taken up as one of a case study for data science, and that is what we are going to call here as a public policy. That is what we are going to call it as a public policy. The next one was a case study which data science was applied to politics. So it was 10 years ago where Facebook was used to understand the presidential elections. So whether Barack Obama will win or not. So based on the tweets, based on the tweets in the Facebook, so people uh, they understanding towards the parties. So whether Donald Trump will win, whether Barack Obama will win. So in this way, they analyze the data and understand the pulse of the people, they understand the pulse of the citizens. So this is where a data science has been prominently used. So for that, they have used a lot of data science algorithms, they targeted models, and they looked up at the voters participation, etc. So these are all one of a tremendous example which it is going to fall in this data science application. The next comes the health domain. So in this health domain, we will uh, uh, check up with some of the medical uh, medical data where it is purely related to some clinical studies, insurance, hospital management, etc. So it is diversified with two directions. One, a relationship between patient and doctor. Two, a relationship between the hospital and insurance and the money matters. So one way was to understand the patient's history to give him a better treatment. Second thing was to have an analysis of on a financials towards incurring the medical content, etc. So one between the hospitals and insurance agencies, etc., and two with the health records between the understanding between the patient and diagnosis of the patient's health situation very steadily. So healthcare is purely relying on this industry where this data science is going to work on the biological data, then it is working on gene expression, and it works on DNA sequencing and make a studies of the health issues related to the patient, and thereby it is going to give set of health services for uh, the patient. So this is how a decision making is going to be made by the doctor. So advisors are going to be revolutionized, and thereby a better treatment has been given to the patient. So this is where a healthcare is going to have. And now there are now data science is going to use for the personal wearable health trackers. So even in the mobile phones right now, we are having some health apps. So how many steps we have walked, etc., like Fitbit watches or some other way of understanding the health behavior. So these are some of the prominent applications towards the healthcare where data science is going to give its services. Another way where data science is going to have some of an application, so this is what we are going to call it as an urban planning. So in this urban planning, the main intention was to formulate the quality of life. So how we are going to give a quality of life was the land acquisition, the integration, the analysis of data. So um, the locations, etc. Everything is going to be monitored, geosatellized, and data is going to give up. His living area is going to be analyzed, and town planning, town building, everything is going to be taken up with these interventions between the resources and the anticipated explorations. So all this informatics, it is going to be used as a part of this data science application. Another application where this data science is going to use, it will be in form at the education technology. So or we are going to call here it as an edtech services. So at this case, they are now meeting up the technology, bringing up the technology towards the education, and it is totally data driven, and personalization use of technology has been made in this education. So student performance, student learning approaches, everything is going to be mind understood, has been data is going to be analyzed. It is not a specific to a study, but it is point to point, or we can say it is a one-to-one study. So every student has will be analyzed with this data. Based on his data, and analytics is going to play a major role towards it. So online tools are going to be available. Big data is going to have a prominent way, because if it is tied up with universities, lot number of students will be there. So this is where one of an area where education is going to use up this data science. Another application where data science is going to make its footprints will be one other area will be at the libraries. So the conventional library, it is just a books. Now we are going to move towards the digital revolution. At this point of time, libraries are being automated. Library books are going to be put in shade. So citizens now they can use their key findings. They can examine uh, the sources, get knowledge, and this is where the library taxonomies are being designed. Its metadata has been retrieved, and it can be passed out to the citizens, etc. So this is another application where data science is going to look at. So we were mentioning that data science is going to be a multidisciplinary or an interdisciplinary word. So the next question was how this data science it is going to be related to the other fields. So relating to the other fields will be with in form of nurturing of a data, and it is where the business experts or the domain experts will understand the problem, give up some set of solutions. So how they are going to give up some set of solutions will be yeah, with a word called here as a statistics here. So statistics is going to play a lot of role for this modern computers era, where people will have enough knowledge from the problems, where problems are going to be identified, they are tested, and they are estimated to get a overall content. And so subsampling is going to happen. So if I'm going to have 100 as a population, 100 instances as a data set, I'll be taking only 10 parts. I will be taking only 10 elements in it. So if I pick up just one element, I call it as a sample. So bit from that, randomly I'm choosing some number of samples. So there the word subsampling is going to occur. So the technique what we are going to indulge, those we are going to apply to the subsamples, and thereby we will reciprocate it to the main samples. So obviously the accuracy is going to be understood over the testing model. So this is how we are going to find the impact. This is how we are going to make the accuracy of a model. And the second prominence, yeah, we were talking about the data science here. So the second prominence, what we were telling was we are going to emphasize the data problem from larger databases, and we will be using the bar charts, pie charts, etc. for visualizing the data. So now there are two more buzzwords which need to be understood at this point of time. That is what we are going to call it as data science, and that is what we are going to call here as a computer science. So computer science, it is going to involve number of current and initiate burglarious initiatives that invoke the data scientist. So the prerequisites to the data science will be one, the computer science components. So those what we are going to say, it can be databases, and one, if it is taking the relational database, yeah, data will be in form of structured content. Otherwise data will be in form of unstructured content. So if it is going to be in form of unstructured content, there we will be using data analytics via the NoSQL database. So yes, we were just mentioned that we will be using a lot of visualization tools to help people to sense the content inside the data. And third thing, we will be using the classification and clustering and association techniques. It can be used with a single algorithm or multiple algorithms. So that intent will make complex or heterogeneous data. So this is where numerous techniques are going to be used up. So what about data science and what about engineering? So again, it was mentioned clearly that data science, it is not configured only just a relationship between the computer science and the data science. It is going to be impended along with data science and with the engineering domains. So engineering domains, it can fit it chemical, civil, mechanical, any type of domain can be used up with this data science. So prominently data science, it is going to use to solve the critical problems in the different types of engineering branches. So the hardware infrastructure towards benefiting the data sciences approaches, one, we are going to use the central processing units. Two, we will be using the large programs or dealing with games, dealing with the augmented reality and virtual reality. So at that case, we will be using the graphical processing unit. So instead of CPUs, we will be using the GPU content. So this is where the another application what we are going to know. So first one, we differentiated between computer science and data science. Next one, we differentiated between the two words, data science and engineering. And third, now we are looking between data science and with the business analytics. So when we are going to talk about the business analytics, we will look up with the doing the business with a specific goal and to give the model with an efficient outcome. So what will be the things was we have to make a good decision making. So that is based on the objectives what we have started at the initial phase, and thereby we are going to make some data analytics at this content. So what will be the skill towards applying the business and analytics will be: one, we are going to call it as skills; two, we are going to call it as technologies; three, we are going to make this iterate to not a single process, but it will be a repetitive process. So it will be a continuous iterated exploratory process. And what we are going to find, we are going to investigate the past, we are going to investigate the current, and we are going to gain the knowledge, and thereby we are going to forecast the trends, forecast the future. So that is where we will be giving quick insights what will be in the data. So how we are going to take up this business analytics means we will make a successful decision. So how we are going to make up a successful decision? Yes, we'll be conducting statistical analysis, we'll be conducting the predictive analysis, we'll be conducting the fact-based management and explanatory analysis. All these phases will be discussed in detail in the coming up content. So this is what we are going to use up the word, the four phases of the data analytics. So one, we are going to call it as prescriptive; two, we are going to call it as predictive; three, we are going to call it as diagnostic; fourth one, we are going to call it as an ad hoc. So based on these contents, so you can observe in this diagram the past content, it is going to be applied over the data. It is the past content because already data was in the database, data was in the data warehouse. Now data is available over the data, we are going to apply our models. So we are going to apply our algorithms. So we have two contents, one and this, that is what we call it as descriptive phase and diagnostic phase. And over the existing data we were able to do it, and what for we are going to do, we are going to do it for getting future insights. So how we are going to get the future insights? So first one, using the past data we are going to make up predictions, and then the predictions, how to make it realistic, we are going to give some prescription. So we are going to take up some actionable items insights, and we will check whether the action has been worked or not. So this is what we are going to call here as a prediction. So what is the best action we can take? So once an action was taken and what was the impact, etc., will be again analyzed. So these will be the core idea of what we are going to bring up the things at this case. So the first one, what the data was telling, what happened in my business, we are going to call here as a descriptive mode. Second one, will it happen again? We are going to identify the trends, we call it as diagnostics. And then we identified it, and then we want to know next time when it is going to occur, we are going to call here as a predictive. And finally we take up a recommendation, so the impact, the outcome, the strategy. So what will be the best course of action at that time if it is going to repeat? So there we are going to get up this prescriptive analysis. So these four phases are purely interlinked with one another, and they give up a good impact over the major issues in the data analytics. So in business analytics, the main intention was we need to have a decision analysis. So based on the data, after applying the model, after getting an outcome, then taking a decision to move it to the next level. So it is going to have its impact. So the data science is going to have its impact over the business analytics. So it is purely used for decision making and give quick reasoning and visual analytics, etc. So on the data, what was available? So the past data is going to be understood. We are going to call that word here as a historic data. and then we are going to make modeling. It can be statistical content, or it is going to be machine learning techniques. It can be classification or clustering content. So we are going to make the word called as an predictive. And for last stage was we were talking, that is what we call it as a predictive analysis. In this predictive analysis, we are going to use recommendations, and we are going to make the optimizations, and we do have a feedback mechanism. So as we are going to have a feedback mechanism, we will understand whether the prediction works, whether the recommended decision has been worked or not. So that one, it is going to be verified. So this is how data science has been used up in all these cases. So a quick recap of what we have discussed for today. So we talked about the life cycle of data science. So in this life cycle of data science, we mentioned it is mostly a feedback mechanism, where it does has discovery, it does have the data preparation. Third, it is going to have some model planning, etc., and followed by model building and operationalizing, and finally it is going to communicate the results. So at every phase we have one issue. The first one, business formulation, forming null hypothesis and alternate hypothesis, setting up the budget. That takes a phase one. In second, we will be taking extraction, transformation, loading, and again transformation over the structured and unstructured data. Third thing, we will understand the data with the exploratory data analysis, with statistical models, visualizations, etc. We call that word as model planning. So the fourth thing was we will be using R language or SPSS or statistic or Python, etc., to build up the models, and we will use various tools, learning models with clustering, association, and classifications. Then we are going to generate the final reports, briefing up the actionable insights inside, and thereby the sixth phase we will be communicating the results to all the stakeholders and mentioning whether the goal has been achieved or not. So the route, whether the content has been worked or not. So data will be taken up in form of surveys, logs, weather data, road data, etc. And data can be stored up in various text formats, or like audio format, video format, etc. So everything is collected, and thereby it is rendered with various tools to give quick insights. So if we are going to take up a vast volumes of data, then we say it is with the 3V model, that is the bandwidth, speed, the storage capacity, and the way the data is. It is whether it is a structured approach or it is an unstructured approach. The last thing was it is towards the applications where data science can be used up with finance application, with the public policy application, with the policy, with the political applications, the healthcare sector application, the urban planning application, etc., and also including the education policies, etc. Then we understood the differences, where exactly data science will be related. It can be related between the pure statistics and data science. Second, a relationship between the general computer science domain and data science. Third, it between data science and engineering aspect. Fourth, an integration of data science with the business analytics, etc. And when we talk about business analytics, it goes up with four phases, that is descriptive, diagnostics, predictive, and prescriptive. The first two phases we are doing it on the existing data. Third, we predict, and fourth thing, we make a decision with feedbacks, etc. So all this we have discussed as a part of today's class. So now let us conclude our class for today and continue the class